I think we're live. Are we live? I guess we're live.
Yeah,
Can you hear me, Victor?
yeah, hear you well.
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Lots of stuff going on for USDT and Bitcoin, and I'm so excited with us being this Ether company and everything that we built and the Tether support we got. So much stuff. I never been so busy in my life over the last probably 5 years, 6 years. I don't know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, look, I mean, we're definitely going to go into this. I just want to welcome everybody who's joining in here right now. For the ones that, come from your Texas side or just generally interested in the topic. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm going to start. I'm going to let Victor, of course, do the same thing. I'm Boris. I'm the CEO of Concordium. And this is a conversation that I genuinely look forward to. We're going to talk about a lot of things. But in many ways, something that sits at the intersection of payments, the compliance side of things, and what comes specifically next, where we are extremely focused on, and I know Utexo as well, what comes next when AI agents start transacting at scale. And I think the timing of this is that conversation specifically is extremely timely and exactly right to do this now. But before we get into it, let me quickly introduce Victor. He's the CEO of Utexo, the leading platform for USDT settlement on Bitcoin's Lightning Network. Victor, great to have you here.
Thank you, Boris. Appreciate for setting this up. It should be an exciting talk.
Exactly.
Agentic payments, stable coins, all hype stuff, but with the two leading companies. I mean, us, of course.
Yeah, not just building. Yeah, not just saying it, but actually fucking doing it, which is different. Look, I think I'm going to let you do your spiel in a second. I'll again, for people that are just dialing in and have no clue of what Concordium is, because it's not yet of the pedigree as many would say, like Ethereum, etc. But anybody unfamiliar with Concordium, we provide on-chain identity for both humans and AI agents. We want to think about it this way: verified credentials and compliance-ready rails at a global scale, all built into one stack. So we were the first to build this long time ago. In many ways, you can argue too early. And right now is the, basically exactly the infrastructure that I think the market needs. And just to kind of set the scene quickly for anybody here as well, because context in many ways matters. The conversation in crypto very much has shifted, in my opinion. It used to be about, purely access, getting capital in as much as possible. And there were a lot of dubious, shitty projects and setups that were basically out and about. Now it's very much about utility, especially if you want to pair it with the real world, and what you can actually build, settle, and also verify. And the moment you ask those questions seriously, you run straight into, the payments and identity problem, which we are very much aware of. Utexo is very much aware of, and that is what we're going to talk about today. But done with Concordium, Victor, I think it will be useful to kind of give everybody a bit of an overview of, how it all happened with Utexo, how you kind of got to the point of where you are right now, where you want to take this, and kind of set the scene from your standpoint.
Yeah, sure. Actually, it's fun enough. Sorry, it's like my dog is over here.
What's the dog?
It's like a nice cocker spaniel. Yeah. Well, anyway, just give me one sec.
Yeah, no
Yeah. Anyway, so Utexo. I started Utexo back in 2023 as a joint venture with Tether. When Tether found that my previous company, Boosty Labs, has a venture department that is highly focusing on Bitcoin innovations, especially in the Bitcoin Lightning space, Tether were like, oh, how you do this? And I'm like, oh, I'm looking for a smart Bitcoin founders and deploying my capital and capital of my partners to help them to launch Bitcoin companies. And they were like, what is Bitcoin companies? And I'm like, it's a companies in Bitcoin space that can make money. And they're like, oh, we want to launch something together with you or invest in your venture studio. So we decided to start from a first joint venture as with a focus on RGB. RGB is a technology to issue tokens on top of Bitcoin, and this technology also allow you to do kind of client-side validation. This technology, client-side validation, gives you very lightweight transactions because, like, when you send transaction on top of Bitcoin, you need to specify what you send to whom and blah blah blah. So it's like a kind of like it has some weight. Uh, but on RGB, you put all this information on a wallet side, and you use wallet as a peer-to-peer transfer layer. And on a Bitcoin, you just like a post the proof that transaction happens. So this technology was originally been architected in 2017 by Giacomo Zucco and Peter Todd. And the idea of Tether was actually to migrate from Omni layer, if you guys remember that like USDT was on Omni, to RGB because RGB was more efficient. And also Tether was funding Lightning network development just to place RGB over Lightning because they tried it with Omni and they failed. It was a long time ago because of like some problems with Omni as a very OG, which not necessarily means good technology. So that's why RGB was created. But the previous team like spent so much time and money on building this, and then Tether decided to take the lead. They found us, and apparently we launched RGB to mainnet in August last year. And then Tether were like, "Oh, Viktor, do you want to push it?" And I was like, okay, well, then why not to do this? So then we merged this RGB development company that we did with Tether called RGB OS, like a Thunderstack, we call it like this, with Tricorn, which was a partner of Concordium since 2023. That's how we actually know each other for such a long time. So Tricorn was another company in our venture portfolio that was building cross-chain bridging, and Concordium was one of the first chains that we actually bridged. So once we bridged a Thunderstack and Tricorn, we created a company called Utexo. And Utexo is a company that issuing USDT over Bitcoin, placing it over Lightning, and support with USDT over Bitcoin integration for all major exchanges, wallets, Fireblocks, and wallet as a service like companies, with one idea to bring USDT back home to Bitcoin, where it was originally started. And then like we have multiple use cases like agentic payments where we need to have identity. That's why we did this collaboration with you guys in Concordium, because like when I found about Concordium for the first time back in 2023, I tried to understand what's the purpose of the project. And back then for me, like identity was not actually something that like catched my heart. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute, but crypto is cool for privacy when it comes to cypherpunks. But if we want to have a real adoption, we actually need to follow what regulator is saying, and regulator needs you to have a verified identity over a wallet or over any substance that participated in this like a payment flow. So that's when I understood why Concordium is actually makes sense. And only after maybe 1 year, lots of the startups with ZK proofs, ZK passports, blah, 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 started to appear. But Concordium was like a pioneering this. I don't remember, like it was 2018 or 19 when Concordium
18.
started. 18. Yeah, actually started by amazing team like Lars Sears, like it's like a legend in FX market, like a Saxo Bank is like a wow. Like I heard about Saxo Bank when I was a kid, and yeah, and it was like such a big pleasure, like to work with a guy like who started this. Yeah, but that's when I actually understood why Concordium is cool, and since then I started to think, okay, how I can actually partner with you guys in a way where it will make sense. And finally, I built a new company, because my previous company was Boosty Labs. We were doing outsourcing and some venture
Yeah.
incubating, blah blah blah. But finally, I can leverage Concordium for a big purpose, and big purpose is uh, regulated activities with USDT. So maybe with Concordium and Utexo, we can make, well, we will not make USDT MiCA compliant, because there is some other like a capital requirements which we have nothing to do, because we're not a Tether, we're just Tether company. But with this regulation in place, I don't know, maybe we can bring USDT to FX market, because FX market require like some identity in place. And I mean, Saxoban, Concordium, Utexo, against, it's just like one of the multiple ideas I have. Yeah, so I'm super excited of this space, but even more of our partnerships that we finally did for a purpose.
Yeah, same here, man. It's this industry is interesting. I mean, I've been in it now for 10 years, and a lot of it is, so if you try to kind of get specific companies or issuers to do business with you, it's insanely expensive, and really kind of misses the use case. Tether kind of stands out on this front because they don't really care too much. For them, it's about usage and utility, and this is where I'm very, very excited of what we do there. But you said a couple of points here which I think we need to kind of dive deeper on. Regulators, kind of a love-hate relationship in many ways, right? Because over-regulation kills business. I'm a very entrepreneurial guy, so are you, I know that. But look, regulated industries as a whole have been patching up a pretty much broken stack for years now. Think of card bans, rising chargebacks, because payments is kind of the obvious use case for me in many ways. Not only in our day-to-day life, but specifically if we think of an agentic economy where you think of micropayments, like pay for an API, pay for whichever shape or form you would like to monetize specific things that are currently very hard to monetize. But in many ways, the KYC really, the way that it has been implemented, it very much killed conversion before user was able to reach checkout in many ways, right? The irony, I think, is that these operators want to be compliant. I understand that, and you kind of have to. But the tools just were not built for them. And to what you said earlier, yes, I mean, if you looked at Concordium during the DeFi hype, and you go like, why the hell are those guys building stuff with identity? And that's not really what is important here right now, because it's far more important to have an NFT of a punk or an ape in your wallet. That's basically was the mantra at the time, right? I think people kind of lost or don't really remember that crypto really offered speed in many ways, but it never really solved for the identity, like the compliance angle. So you ended up with fast payments, which is great, but they don't meet the regulatory requirements. And that is a gap that has been kind of sitting here for a long time. And specifically with the partnership that we have, we can close this gap in many ways, both on the agentic side and also when we think of online gambling and stuff like this. So let me ask you this. So where Utexo sits, what does that friction look like on the ground? If you're interacting with the operators and the PSPs that you work with, what is the main, what are the pain points? What are we together going to solve for here in order for it to really take off?
Yeah, so this type of partnership we have here will help us to solve mainly regulatory stuff, because again, let's take FX as an example, and let's explore it more. So so what is FX? FX market is like a Saxo Bank. It's mainly like a bank-to-bank infrastructure where as those banks a trading this currency pairs, and they're not doing a cash delivery. So if they're not doing cash delivery, or if they want to do a cash delivery, for example, they need to have the identity layer, because you cannot just be a big bank that trade on Saxo and then withdraw USDT or I don't know IED like Dirham, Tether, whatever, back to a blockchain without identification. Because, well, first of all, cash delivery is not a business for FX. Second, even in some markets where it's technically possible, you cannot. Banks will never do this because they scare regulator, because they don't want the license to be taken out, because you never know how you will withdraw this money and to whom. So that's where partnership between Utexo and Concordium will make sense. For example, if my sales team or Tether expansion team who help us to spread our use cases will sell to FX brokers like Saxo, and Saxo will need to have identity layer to offer to the banks of a certain countries for a certain trading pairs. It's just like one of the examples. Another example is like a compliant USDT transactions, just generally money remittances. So how usually money remittance works, where USDT involved as a value transfer asset. So first you do on ramp, then this on ramp happens through local currencies, and with local currency you buy USDs, and with USD you buy USDT. Then you send it, then you do reversive transaction on another side. So it's kind of cool, but where is the identification? Like, especially when you move a big amount of money, if there is no identification, what's the risk that your supplier or another bank or another payment company will accept this money? Because I mean, like, there is even companies like Crystal Blockchain or Chainalysis who has a score for a specific USDT or for a specific wallet that maintain USDT. And so like a bunch of iGaming operators are scared of having a low score for their wallet that maintain USDT, and they're always like desperately looking for ways how to kind of like put USDT in a bucket which will not be blocked. And identity layer will solve it, because if we have an identity layer here and we can prove that transaction been sent from one trusted party to another trusted party, then even if like some tether block will happen for a specific account, even in iGaming, having this like a pass that you can disclose who sent money to whom with Concordium identity will help to unblock this money potentially. So that's why institutions will need to use this integration to be a little bit less scary of touching kind of a dirty crypto money. Because when you implement the identity part here, like a USDT become compliant, because like some people saying that like a USDT is kind of a shadow bank or blah blah blah, which maybe in some cases it's true. Like if we, because like a USDT is a global currency, everyone uses it, so potentially even so like some bad actors are using, like mainly good actors, but still. But if good actors don't want to be associated with bad actors, identity layer actually of Concordium can help us to solve this problem. So, for example, people who regulated entities who want to use USDT in a compliant way, they can go to Utexo, mint USDT, maybe mint on Concordium, because like we already like integrated. Utexo is already integrated with Concordium through bridging. So, and do their regulated activities on top of a Concordium chain, and when they need to settle it back to whatever chains where USDT is represented. Obviously, Utexo is better because it's on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is the best blockchain ever. But if you want to settle it back to Tron or back to Ethereum, you can also do it with Utexo. So that's how this integration with Utexo and Concordium can make your USDT transactions highly compatible with any regulations, because Utexo give you a fresh USDT mint, which means there is there is nothing to say bad about this USDT because it's just freshly minted. Then once you get this freshly minted USDT on Concordium, you are 100% sure that it is fresh and it's kept by someone whom Concordium already verified. And then like you can do like your B2B activities on Concordium and then settle back to Bitcoin. So this is like the biggest use case I see in our partnerships.
Yeah, I mean, look, I actually wanted to talk about the architecture, but you really kind of covered a lot. But it's people more and more are asking the right questions, which makes me quite happy. But there is still a big gap with regards to what people understand of when they look at what they consider the successful projects in comparison to Concordium, which is not on the first page of CoinMarketCap yet. But those compliance solutions and everything that you basically outlined here, unfortunately, all lives in an application layer because those chains and those setups didn't really build for that from the outset. It was built on an anonymous, thought. And privacy preservation in comparison to anonymity are two completely different things. So building that into the protocol layer also opens up use cases which are kind of closed-doored right now, and that's really what I'm very excited to get going with you guys here, and in the wider Tether ecosystem and the use cases that surround it. But let's kind of switch gear a little bit and talk about what we've been working towards since we just had the town hall about a week and a half ago, or is it a week ago or something? And we talked about the fact of us waiting to kind of finally get to the point of where we are now, the agentic economy. I think people are somewhat still a bit blind to the fact of like what's happening in front of our face. I mean, quite a lot of people are talking about AI agents, but almost no one is asking the right question, in my opinion. It's not what agents can do, but more so of how do we know who's responsible when they do it. So in many ways, the verification is, well, not in many ways, the only way forward there is that the verification can play that unlock. And given the fact that the agentic economy is already forming, AI agents are already existing in order to book travel, execute trades. You just need to look on X, on Twitter, and all the like crazy fuckers that set up some open close setups in order to trade and on prediction markets, etc. But also they are used to manage supply chains. In many ways, we have implemented them in many ways in order to make our workflows better, but to also have them do it completely autonomously. So the main problem is that they're doing this on an infrastructure that was basically built for humans, and that generally is like slow and leaky and unaccountable in some ways. So our position already, when I spoke to Lars, I kind of, and given the fact that you also know him, when I before I signed on the dotted line to become CEO here, that was like in early 24. He already has been raving, like he couldn't stop talking about AI and what AI will do and AI this, and I was like, it was a little bit early at that point. But everything that we build in and around PLTs, like the protocol level tokens, the protocol level locks, and subsequently, of course, the identity that has always been built onto base layer, we're building kind of a prelude to figure out of how to actually be that dominant force within an agentic economy. And we have a very, very clear plan there. Now, having said that, agents are already executing complex tasks autonomously, and increasingly at a speed which, I said this, I think, at the town hall as well. I thought crypto is moving fast, but this technology is a different beast altogether. But in many cases, those tasks involve moving money. Now, I think I maybe said this initially, like, paying for APIs, if it comes to like manage your subscriptions. I mean, I need to ask you, like, how many subscriptions do you have on your phone? I have no fucking clue, to be honest. I'm just paying stuff, which I've set up like maybe a year or two ago. all the way, of course, to settling invoices and, like I said, also executing trades, which is quite an interesting angle in many ways. So when a human makes a payment, by default there is identity behind it. If I have my my bank card, my credit card, I've been onboarded at the bank. The card issuer knows of who I am, where I live, and everything else, which I'm somewhat okay with. That it's just known generally, but actually not at all. This is a cypherpunk in me that kind of very much wants the anonymity and privacy. But the accountability question comes much harder in this instance when an agent makes a payment, because you need to know who this agent is. Is this agent authorized? Can it settle with it, compliantly, on both sides? And what Concordium does, and now by extension, of course, what we can do within the Utexo ecosystem, is to kind of give those agents the ability to carry verifiable zero-knowledge proof-backed credentials. And any counterparty or regulator can confirm the agent's legitimacy without accessing the underlying data. And this is what I mean. You don't walk into a football stadium holding your social security number and your address, and I don't know, for everybody to see. You would like to have a level of privacy, which in the existing world doesn't really exist, which is why you have to onboard for every single service these days that you'd like to access. Now, gaming and high-risk payments are the proof of the concept that we've done last year. And the agentic economy is where the infrastructure really scales for us, which is where we're so excited to do this with you. Now, if you think of that settlement infrastructure, Viktor, or from a settlement infrastructure perspective, because that's basically where you sit, right? What does agentic scale, transaction volume actually require, if this is also supposed to happen with Utexo?
You mean like what's ideal capacity?
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
I'm not talking TPS, because that's total and utter bullshit, right?
Yeah.
This whole like Solana, I like Anatoly and everything else, but it's like 50, let's get 15 million transactions per second. Is like, pal, this is not a problem that we have right now. So I'm not talking TPS here. I'm talking about infrastructural scale, which you kind of touched on already when it came to like the USDT settlement, like where you can take this, also thinking about FX. But from an infrastructure perspective, because from Copper's point of view, I've been in infrastructure my whole life, and this is what I'm seeing with where I position myself with Concordium as well. What, in your opinion, does the actual agentic economy, when you think of scale, require in order for it to actually prosper?
Well, definitely identity layer, and I know that you guys actually did a partnership with X402 by Coinbase recently, and actually it's like a well, first thing is identity. Second thing is connectivity. So X402 is actually doing a great job by connecting lots of these different providers for agentic payments all together. Utexo here gives something that you think is not important. It's TPS, but actually what is interesting with Utexo, we are not trying to have like a big amount of TPS, because guess why? Because Lightning is the most scalable solution ever. If you tell me you need 1 billion transactions per second, I will give it to you, because it's Lightning. Because I have no limitation of block time and block size, how Solana has or Monad has, because Lightning is created for payments. Blockchains were never created for payments. Blockchains were created for settlements. Well, it was created for payments when few people were using this.
Yeah.
But anyway. Also privacy, because when you send a transaction, you don't want the whole world to know about it. However, you also don't want bad actors to use the stable coin just to launder money or something. That's where also Utexos provide a solution. Client-side validation. However, because it's on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is as you remember, Satoshi told in white papers that Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, which and cash means It's like a paper bill, and Bitcoin has this paper bill. It's called Utexo, as an opposite to Ethereum or Tron. So every paper bill are unique. So that's why every paper bill can be tracked. And if something bad will happen, like you know which paper bill to kind of like a mark or block or whatever, how in real economy. So that's where Utexo also kind of is solving a problem. Like we give privacy, but we give a compliant privacy. So means with X402, with Concordium, with Utexo and with USDT, we can create the best solution for agentic world because we have unlimited TPS, we have privacy but still compliance, and we have connectivity. Of course, like we will need some additional providers for fiat on ramp, off ramp. I
Which
don't
is a
know.
pain in the ass, to be honest.
Exactly.
I wish that the world would wake up, because like onboarding on this shit is just like you want to gouge your eyes out. But yeah, there is still some work to be done. But this is, where also more forward-thinking businesses, which are also very AI focused, like Revolut, etc., can play quite a role. Maybe. Look, I'm extremely thrilled about the whole thing. It's been in the making for a while now, and I'm very, very excited to kind of get this going. We're moving at light speed, I think. So going live is going to happen at pace, which is very, very exciting for both of us. And yeah, I mean, look, in many ways, I think if we kind of, take the agentic side of things again, I mean, ultimately humans are supposed to underlie it all, right? But it is a matter of actually where you kind of hear a lot of voices that, artificial intelligence in whichever shape or form has been like this use case, or the agentic economy in many ways is this use case that crypto was actually built for, in a full digital world. And I would tend to agree. We've seen some really awesome developments over the course of the last, like, since I'm in the space, like 9-10 years, from NFTs to DeFi to everything else. But I think the problem there has been solved, and there are a couple of what you would consider winners. But the question is if those are the ones that are going to continue to be leading the way, and I would highly doubt that, because stuff like this, what we can do, Ethereum can't do, to make it simple. So look, having said that, maybe I'll ask you one more question on this front, because I had this plotted down earlier. I need to find it. Hold on a second, but this was quite an important one. Yeah. What would you want the operators and PSPs, also the ones that you're already working with, but the ones that are listening in today, to be paying attention to over the next 6 to 12 months? What do you think is going to be the thing that will leave certain businesses on the side of the road while others are going to be absolutely flying?
I think it's a couple of things. So first on the business side, and second is on the technical side. On the business side, I would recommend to operators and PSPs to take a look more on the stablecoin development, because stablecoins, is there is so much money and so much energy and so much bright minds are working on different stablecoin implementations, but at the end it will end up with a few simple solutions. First, it will solve um, price of on off ramp, and second, it will solve a problem and price of FX. Once these two things will be solved with the stablecoins, I think that everyone who are not using stablecoins will just die, because right now the only problem with the stablecoins when you use them for payments is price of using them, because on off ramp is still expensive, like a MoonPay and so like other guys, like they're quite expensive. So it's better to use, I don't know, Shift 4 for a certain use case without even like involving stablecoin. Well, Shift 4 are doing a lot in stablecoin space thanks to Alex Wilson, but still. But once this like two frictions will be solved, the traditional finance rails will like start slowly to die. And technical part of this is like, well, if you do a crypto processing, then look for well, crypto processing is like probably 5 to 8% of all payment processing market generally, but even if you still have a big flow of your customers' money going through stable coins, like look for solutions like well, if you are like in iGaming space, like you don't care probably about compliance in on a certain markets, but well, compliance, pardon, identity, but so like if you work in US, you need to take a look at Concordium payment solutions, so like because like it make your stablecoin payments compliant. But if you work on a general market, so like and you don't need identity, like keep in mind that the general user is keep all his money on exchange, and user pay from exchange accounts, not from a non-custodial wallet. So that's what it's maybe not even to operators, but to also developers in who develop crypto processing solutions. Guys, like look for how you will solve a real problem for crypto adoption, not for like a cyberpunk punk non-custodial experience. No one cares about non-custodial experience, sadly. So for example, one interesting fact: most of crypto casino deposits happening from sex accounts, like 80% or 70%, something like this. So that's why like you need to think about how to simplify for your user flow to deposit from crypto exchange. You don't need to think about MetaMask or something like this. Like think about this. Also, if you want to do an analytic about like all the casinos, for example, they're looking for VIPs because that's how they make money, mainly on the VIPs. So most of the VIPs are actually using exchange account as well. So if you're if you're like thinking that you will build amazing crypto processing tool with some analytic tool like Azurit or Lazurit, whatever they call it in this casino world, then probably it will show you not a real data. So you need to think a little bit more about crypto processing use case and how you work with this data. So yeah, it's kind of very abstract recommendation, but still, anyway, yeah,
Man,
technology plus business.
yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Um, things are going to move fast, my friend, and I'm happy that we're moving together. So a lot of things exciting, everything that you have done with Tether, now doing with us, and then like kind of let's go and rule the world. Let's make it easy, huh?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, I love it. Love
Look,
your energy, Boris.
man, thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining. I think we're going to put I think the team is putting all the links in the space description. So follow Concordium, follow Utexo, please, for everything that is about to come. And that's a lot. So yeah, let's get this party started, and yeah, looking forward to chatting again soon. We will chat anyway, and everybody listening in, looking forward to kind of hearing you one of our next things that we're going to do, which is going to be filled with announcements and other things. So thank you very much for tuning in, and see you again soon.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.